Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He's Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor, and Marcell Ozuna owns Miami and the Marlins. It all started last year, and apparently that is just his Linus blanket whenever he goes down to Miami.
What an insane weekend for Marcell Ozuna. And
he had a great weekend.
If you remember, this is the series, the trip to Miami last year, May 2nd through 4th. That is the one where Ozuna broke the skid, right? He was batting, I think it was 081 entering that weekend, or 085, look it up. And in 085.
I don't know that it matters once it gets below 100, Lindsay.
Yeah.
You could have said 041. It was still putrid. It was terrible.
But he goes 6 for 13. He hits 3 homers, including a grand slam. Only strikes out twice, like big weekend. And from there, that's what catapulted him to just being absurd. And he repeats it this weekend. He hits multiple home runs. I think he has, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I didn't have the preparation on that. I think it was 4 or 5 RBIs on Sunday, including the 9th inning home run. And really funny story about that home run real quick. So we've talked a little bit on here, but a lot kind of in the morning meeting and things like that I've been doing about the rotation issues for the Marlins and AJ Puk, the reliever, moving to the rotation to give them some additional innings. And so Tanner Scott is the closer. He closed in the month of September for them last year and he got Marcell Ozuna to ground into a double play in the 9th inning on Saturday. And the way that he did it, he threw nothing but sliders to Ozuna, but it was a slider middle. It was a slider in and then a slider down. And the slider down is the one that Ozuna rolled over for the double play. On Sunday, he goes to Ozuna and he goes slider middle, slider in. And when he throws the slider down, Marcell Ozuna knew the sequence was the same and he went down and got it and launched the home run. So Miami needs their injured pitchers to come back so they can put AJ Puk back as the closer so that Tanner Scott can stop doing dumb things like that. Because you go to the well one too many times. We talked about this with Alan Winans. You could only do the same sequence so many times before guys will figure it out. And that absolutely happened to the Miami Marlins, and Marcell Ozuna made him pay.
Marcell, the fact that they even got to the 9th inning and they were willing to throw to him with people on, not that you wanted to put him on, right. But I mean, still, I don't put anything near the plate, especially inner half. I'm not putting anything near, and hopefully he just chases sliders away. And it was almost like it comes back to that, what a lot of pitchers do, Lindsay, and they're a little OCD. And so they stick with the same routine over and over. And when you do, it comes back to bite you.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if I remember correctly, I was writing some of the takeaways during this. If I remember correctly, they didn't really throw anything you could hit to Matt Olson either.
Nope.
And so if you don't throw anything you can hit to Ozuna, that loads the bases for Adam Duvall. And Snit's decision to not pinch hit Jared Kelenic for Adam Duvall, I panned it in the takeaways because there was 2 outs in the inning. You had a guy on second, and Duvall strikes out to end the inning. But in that situation, it worked out because I'm sure Tanner Scott was thinking, I can't load the bases for their guy who hits lefties. Like, I have to do something. And so that's probably led to, okay, I got him out yesterday. I got 2 outs off of him in one at bat. So I can probably do it again and not have to face Adam Duvall, who already hit a home run today and had one that was really close to being a home run. So I think some of that, it kind of goes back to that lineup can just kill you. Like, no matter where you are in the lineup, the next dude up can punish you when you face the Braves.
Best there is, top to bottom by far. It's all brought to you by Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code BRAVES. Get your 10% off when you go. It comes straight to your doorstep, and they don't even roast the beans until you place your order. They've got your sample packs that you can get. You can get your blended coffees. You can also just get regular old coffee or even regular old tea. Just go to plainscoffee.com, promo code BRAVES. Get your 10% off today. All right, so this brings me, we're talking about the Miami Marlins pitching. Let's talk about the Braves pitching a little bit. Kind of what I expected to happen happened. We got pissed off Max Fried that showed up on Friday night. We got Sale that I still said, in my opinion, the jury's still out on, and it looks like he kind of held true even though he missed some spots. I know you
See,
still love him.
well, I'm going to push back a little bit on it too, because if you, in the 5th inning, I think
Right.
some of the reason you saw those additional 3 runs charged to Chris Sale was because he's got Jake Berger up there, and I believe it's a 5-pitch walk, but it was the 3-1 pitch and the 2-0 pitch were both strikes, and they were called balls. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, he ended up walking when he should have struck out.
Right.
And it was the next batter who plated 3 more runs. So I think if you have the ABS challenge system, or you just have better umpiring, it's a 2-run outing for Chris Sale. And I think that's exactly what we were looking for from Chris Sale versus what he ended up giving up because of bad umpiring. I'm not making excuses. I'm explaining what happened. There's a difference.
Happened to us
commenters,
twice,
listen, there's a difference. Okay. It's not excuses. It's explaining.
That's right. I will say that's happened to us twice. It happened to Fried as well. Should have been out of an inning. And they
that first inning against Castellanos,
Yep. And I still go back. But nobody's talking about this on that Castellanos at bat. He was walking away. He knew it was a strike.
He knew he was out.
That's what got me. Everybody keeps talking about the catcher knew, the pitcher knew, the fielders knew.
Castellanos
knew. He was headed to the dugout. And so that one still irks me. And, of course, like you said with Sale, I still got out of Sale what I needed, which was 7 innings of work and not depleting the bullpen any more than it had to. So he is that guy, if he stays healthy, like we've talked about, and he seems to be. He seems to be in great shape. Everything seems to be
velocity's good.
Yep.
He feels good after the outings. He's not complaining about soreness. He's not dealing with stuff.
Right.
I think you're in the best case scenario, knock on wood, best case scenario for Chris Sale.
And see, 7 innings to me is overachieving. I've told you I'm happy if I can get 5 1/3 out of him, maybe 6 1/3 out of him, or at least get a full 6 out of him. He's an all-star in my book if you get that every time he gets out there. So for him to go 7, very impressed with that. But they did drop that game. The game that I said that they would drop, they dropped.
Yeah. I call it a sweep, so of course it didn't happen.
But honestly, you go back to Sunday, they probably should have dropped that one if their pitchers don't make stupid decisions and pitch the same pitches to Ozuna that they did the day before. But getting back to our pitching, we learn anything because people are freaking out. Everybody's like, got to go get pitchers. And I'm like, okay, guys, we're missing one starter right now. Let's not start trading away players and trading away minor league systems to go get one person for the rest of the year when we got a lot of ammunition in the cabinet, Lindsay, as far as AAA is concerned.
I think you learned that Max Fried's going to be fine. Those first 2 starts were just fluky. They were weird, and that he's going to be fine. So that's a little bit more confidence you have there that you didn't have before. And then outside of that, I think you also learned that you have options in the minor league system to get through the season. I still think the best course of action is rotate through that number 5, build in days off for your guys, find a way to make it to the trade deadline and see if you need something then. Because there is a mitigating factor, and I've mentioned this a couple times in the past, but not recently. You don't have a ton of money. And if you go out to get somebody now, that does have repercussions down the road. The luxury tax payroll, as of now, per Fangraphs, is $272.6 million. If you exceed 277, the penalties go up, but one of the penalties is you lose, your draft pick goes back in the draft. And for an organization that's not going to go sign top-tier free agents, you've got to build your system. You've got to be able to continuously have pitchers you can bring up. So if you go trade for somebody now, odds are if they're good enough to start a postseason game for you, they're going to be enough money where they push you over that tier and you pay draft penalties down the line. All you have to do is make it to the trade deadline before making any sort of rash moves on trades, because if you trade for somebody at the deadline, you're only paying the prorated portion of their salary from the deadline to the end of the year. And it opens a lot more possibilities of getting a guy and still staying under that $277 million.
Trevor Bauer's still out there. you know that's the clickbait name.
I know. And listen, there are so many teams that need pitching.
Right.
If there was a belief within baseball that he has moved past all of the legal issues that are out there, someone would have signed him already.
I also think that he's lying when he says he'll play for league minimum. I think he's saying that to the cameras, and I think his agent is saying something different to the organizations.
I'm not going to accuse Rachel Luba of lying. He probably means that. There's probably some sort of like incentive thing that they want in there. But either way, I come back to if he's as good as we think he is, and he's as cheap as we think he is, the fact that no one has signed him means there's got to be something else that Major League Baseball knows about, that the teams know about, that we don't. Because this is not a league. These are not owners that would turn away a very good player at the league minimum. Because if there's anything that's true, it's that 29 of these teams are owned by the worst people in the world. And the 30th team, the Atlanta Braves, is owned by us because it's a publicly traded company. So
exactly.
If he was an option, someone would have signed him by now.
Well, and the fact that, because you mentioned it, where people needing pitchers, what was that article that came out this past week? You got 16 starters that have some sort of arm problem or either out for the season or have some sort of an issue. That's 16 starters across the league on all teams.
Yeah.
That article was Tuesday. There may be more this weekend.
Oh, Bobby Miller from the Dodgers went on the IL over the weekend.
There you go. So now we're up to 17, 18, 19 pitchers with some sort of issue with their arm, and yet here Bauer still sits without a job. So you're right. I think there's somebody's not telling us. It's never going to come from the Bauer camp because they don't want to throw themselves under the bus. And I guess teams are vetting everything before somebody makes a decision, but they may not have a choice if pitchers keep dropping like flies. We'll see. Speaking of pitching, as we head into the week, and Monday start too, by the way. So no off day. It was a getaway day on Sunday, and they will head to Monday as Lindsay darted out on me there for a second, so I'm not sure if his computer went out. But it looks like the Braves have got Houston, and that will be a 7-10 game both Monday and Tuesday before you get your Wednesday game, and then they'll have Thursday off. So they look to hopefully. I hope they don't get tired. We'll see. Welcome back to, by the way.
No idea what happened there.
That's all right. I still feel it because I did what I was saying. I was talking about the Houston series coming up. No day off. Don't get a day off until Thursday. So what do the Braves plan on doing pitching-wise over the next couple of days? Because you said that next in line to come up is Vines. Is that who's going to be headed this
Darius Vines was called up when Alan Winans was sitting down after that disaster that he had. The Braves did it a little bit differently. We expected, if you follow the pattern, Lopez would start after Morton, so Lopez would be your guy on Monday. When the Braves, in the game notes on Sunday that they sent out to the media, when they had set up the lineup, they had TBD on Monday, Lopez on Tuesday, and Fried on Wednesday. So that tells me, and then they confirmed after the game, Darius Vines is going to be the starter on Monday. And then Bryce Elder was supposed to go over the weekend for Gwinnett and was scratched.
Okay.
And it was a reliever, kind of a bullpen game thing on Saturday, and then Oscar Yanoa went on Sunday. And so what I'm assuming here, the reason you didn't call Bryce Elder up originally was because when you put Strider on the IL, that was the same day that Elder had pitched.
Yep.
And since you had kind of burned some of your bullpen with short outing by Strider and by Fried, you needed somebody who could pitch in relief. That's why Winans, who was the scheduled starter on that Sunday, was called up on Sunday. And then Vines had been the scheduled starter and he got called up, so you had an available arm. What I'm assuming is going to happen here is Vines will start on Monday. Elder was scratched from over the weekend. They'll probably have him throw a bullpen, but when Vines goes back down, they're going to call up Bryce Elder so that the schedule now lines back up and they don't need an additional bullpen arm until his next turn through, and then he will take that start, and that'll just be his fifth starter job going forward. They don't want to shuffle guys back and forth because you are limited on how many times you can option a guy to the minors in the same season. It's not unlimited anymore. And so ideally, they'd rather just have Elder up all season versus shuffling back and forth with Winans and Vines and whoever else. So my assumption is sometime soon after the start, probably Tuesday morning, possibly even Monday night, they're going to send Darius Vines back to Gwinnett and call up Elder in his place.
And speaking of which, just according to the schedule, what it looks like now, that would put Elder, if he throws a bullpen session, possibly starting against Texas on the Sunday night game, which is the ESPN game, the ESPN Sunday night baseball game. So
I think with them moving Fried to up from Friday to Wednesday,
Yep.
and changing the schedule, I'm assuming you probably would have Elder do either the Friday or Saturday game, simply because he hasn't actually pitched in a game since like April 3rd, right? You need to get him in competition. And so I think that's probably what they're going to end up doing, is they probably would just stick him in the next time they have an open day after the off day feels like it'd be perfect. And then you have some combination of like Sale and Morton for the weekend. Assumption, this is not reporting, this is speculation, but that's kind of, it makes sense to me. Go ahead and get Elder out there sooner rather than later. I would say throw him out there on Wednesday against Houston, except for the fact they've already announced Fried, and they don't really like to move that around once they've announced a guy. So I'm assuming, I'll go on the record here and say I'm assuming that if they call up Elder after Vines' start, Elder is going to start Friday or Saturday, so they can go ahead and just get him pitching, because again, he hasn't started in like almost 2 weeks now.
Yeah. So it should be interesting. And then Elder should, as Lindsay said, should stay from there on out, just because it was confirmed. That's one thing we didn't get to. They said they were going to announce Saturday. They did on a Saturday tweet, Saturday morning with Strider, where he did undergo the procedure. So he is out for the season.
He had the internal brace and not the full Tommy John. And I guess to clarify real quick, if anyone watching doesn't know, the UCL is the ligament, obviously, that holds the upper arm to the lower arm. A standard Tommy John replacement, and I've been talking to a sports medicine surgeon, that article's coming out soon. A standard Tommy John replacement is they take a donor tendon from somewhere in your body, your forearm, your thigh, somewhere, or a cadaver's tendon, right?
Yep.
And they sew that in to your elbow in place of your UCL. Strider got the internal brace, which is typically done on a partial tear versus a full tear. We don't have the details on the extent of the tear, but it's a tape-like suture that remains in place after the player has healed and returned to play. And the idea is, obviously, your own, your musculature in your elbow, the muscles coming down to the elbow and things like that, take a lot of the force off of the UCL, and then the UCL takes what's left. The idea is that internal brace is able to withstand some of those forces, and it does remain in the body. And so typically guys return faster from that. And the thought is, we don't have a lot of extended literature on this, but the thought is you have more long-term security and reinforcement with that brace in place, because it does remain versus just a tendon that just becomes part of the structure of the arm. And if it tears, you're done. So, it is a faster healing.
It is. And they have ruled out seasons. Those of you who had delusions or hopes that he would be back like playoffs, because I saw that in the comments. No, that's not. Number one, they would not rush that back anyway. No. But it does sound like he wouldn't miss half of next season with this particular procedure.
My expectation would be probably sometime around April or May. And with the comparison of, if it was a full Tommy John that you had in mid-April of 24, you're looking at sometime in the second half of 25 and probably later in the second half. I feel like your optimistic scenario is you could be back in 12 months. Now, second operation, there's always complications. It could be a little bit longer, but I think it's better than, August of 25, right?
Yeah, completely agree. It's all been brought to you by Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code BRAVES. Get your 10% off. He's Lindsay Crosby. Got takeaways that are up as far as this series is concerned. There'll probably be some sort of preview about Houston coming up that will be up on the website as far as tomorrow. Make sure to go to bravestoday.com for all that info. Lindsay, as always, I greatly appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, buddy.